we have a breaking news. Netflix has agreed to acquire Warner Bros Discovery's TV and film studios and streaming divisions for $72 billion, gaining control of blockbuster franchises including Game of Thrones, DC Comics, and Harry Potter. The major deal strengthens Netflix's dominance as competition intensifies across global streaming. The deal follows a fierce bidding war, with Netflix outbidding Paramount. Skydance analysis say Netflix aims to secure long-term rights to major content as it expands into gaming and seeks new growth. The move is expected to face significant antitrust scrutiny in the US and Europe, given Warner Bros. Discovery's nearly 130 million streaming subscribers and the potential impact on competition in the entertainment industry. Now we move on to Russia-Ukraine. Russian Defense Ministry has confirmed that Russia has claimed new gains on the battlefield, saying its forces have captured the settlement of Bezymen in Ukraine's Donetsk region. The Defense Ministry has announced that 7 settlements across 3 regions came under Russian control over the past week. Ukraine has rejected several of these claims. The Ukrainian General Staff insists that the key city of Pokrovsk remains under Ukrainian control and says heavy fighting continues in multiple areas. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has acknowledged that Russian troops are advancing in some sectors, but stressed that they are facing what he described as intense and violent resistance from Ukrainian forces. Both sides continue to issue conflicting statements about battlefield developments. The developments highlight how fluid the situation remains across several contested regions. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Gilbert Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert who joins us live from Brussels. Thank you very much for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, what are we to make of the both contrasting statements coming in from Russia about the gains and then Ukraine denying such?
Well, I would put my money on the Russian story, because President Putin has invited journalists, including journalists from Ukraine, to come and visit Pokrovsk and to see that it's now completely held by Russia. No, he wouldn't do that if it were not the case. The claims by the Ukrainian side are just barefaced. There's no factual basis for their claims. So let's say the Russians are tentatively telling us the truth.
Right, and how do you think the intensifying attacks from both sides are affecting the peace talks that's ongoing?
Well, I'm glad that you're using the word intense, because so many people talking about this war and about the Russian advances are speaking as if this is a waltz down a rose garden. It isn't. It is a very severe combat in which drones are used, and which drones leave all soldiers on both sides highly vulnerable to unexpected death. So it is a tough fight. In that respect, Mr. Zelensky is correct. However, how the war is going, well, that's, as I said, most likely the Russians have taken Pokrovsk, and that leaves very little standing between them and capture of the entire Donetsk and Donbas region.
And, going back to my first question, if, journalists are allowed to go and see Pokrovsk reality, and if it is, in fact, taken over by Russia, what happens next then? Well,
it's not as though there are no points of resistance left. There are 2 towns that are mentioned, and they are of historic importance, because if we go back to 2014, when the Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts rebelled against the newly installed government in Kiev following the coup d'etat February 2014, the point of resistance, what is called the cradle of Russian Renaissance, was these towns, which are now going to be exposed to fire, Kramatorsk and Slavyansk. These are just to the west, northwest of Pokrovsk, and certainly the Ukrainians have dug in and will be resisting there. but they will have a hard time. They have not had sufficient fortifications to compare with what the Russians have just overcome in almost a year's siege and attack on Pakrovsk. So I don't think the resistance in those two towns can be of great length, great duration, and then it's for the Russians, it's just an easy ride across to the Dnieper River, which means that they will have completed the conquest of Donbass, which is one of their prime territorial objectives. But I do remind the audience that territorial objectives are really not what this war is about.
And what do you think, how close are we to a ceasefire, as we know that, the earlier 28 points have been now reduced to 27, and US and Ukraine and Russia continue the peace talks?
Well, I think the American contribution to peace is on a different scale. The single biggest factor in threatening the Zelensky regime is the anti-corruption probes. And the anti-corruption activity is supported by the United States. So the likely scenario is that the Zelensky will be forced from office. The government will be fragile and will capitulate. That is what I see. I don't think the Russians are going to win out fair and square by conquering every last inch of Ukrainian territory, nothing of the sort. But Ukraine will be politically hammered. In the United States, Mr. Trump personally is doing a very good job of weakening the Zelensky government and preparing for capitulation.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Mr.